Oh, hey, guys. I mean, girls. I mean, them, they, zim, zer, zo. Everything's fucked.
3, 2, 1.
Welcome back, everybody. It's another fine installment of Everything's Fucked. I'm your host, Piss.
And I'm Chris. How's it going, P?
I'm doing pretty good. How you doing?
Well, I'm about triggered as hell right now, and I'm hoping maybe together you and I can mansplain this whole gender. I'm hoping two cis-privileged white males can mansplain the difference between this whole non-binary gender issue here.
But hold on, if we're white, doesn't that make us Nazis too?
Oh yeah, I guess we are Nazis.
So Nazi, zim, or
granted,
cis.
This will be a little bit weighted toward what the Nazi cis white privileged male would mansplain to you about gender, by non-binary genders.
Does that in and of itself make this show completely invalid?
Yeah, I think actually we just, with our privilege, we might have just canceled out our ability to speak on the subject.
Well, speaking of privilege,
we are the problem here, so I want you to remember that.
I am privileged to bring this episode to you, Chris.
So very privileged to take this content to you today. Everybody, thank you for tuning again back into the NASA Fraudcast Channel for our brand new show here, Everything's Fucked. We are very excited to jump into gender pronouns today, I guess.
Yeah, I mean it's really just like pronouns is going to be kind of the over globe of the entire or the scope rather of the show, but we're going to be going into really just like freedom of speech, some of the things that are attacking it, and really like the left's agenda on this whole thing, because I think kind of talking about the left's agenda is going to help sort out why we're talking about pronouns and why we're talking about transsexual people and things like that all of a sudden. So we also have some news that you want to start out with.
The news segment first on this program. Fans of Space Erased, we're going to try to keep our programming relatively homogenous, not in a bad way, but to keep maybe continuity between the programs. So yes, we're going to jump into news. However, this won't be NASA news. This will be Everything's Fucked About the World news. And yeah, let's give our first news segment a try here. First on the agenda,
it's April 22nd today, which makes it Earth Day.
It does, P. Happy Earth Day.
Oh, thank you. You too. It's been a full year since our last one.
Oh, yeah. I really missed it since last year, yeah.
I don't really see the point in Earth Day. I don't know. It's just another one of those like made-up holidays like Arbor Day. But sure, let's throw another one on. If I don't get out of work for it, then it's kind of moot to me.
I don't think it's a holiday if you're not getting out of work.
We can pretty much call anything a holiday. What's on the agenda for Earth Day, you might ask? Plastic. Trying to get rid of it all. So ask yourself what you can do to get rid of more plastic in your life.
Well, I just for some facts about Earth Day, other than the fact that it's a day brought up every year to remind you that yes, you as a human being are the problem here on Earth. Even though it's like you and I don't have smokestacks coming out of our house belching up hundreds of thousands of
and that's why you're the problem.
Whatever the hell. Yeah, it's our little tiny four-banger Chevy that's causing the problem out there.
You said it, Chris.
Earth Day turns 48 today. On today,
oh my God,
we're recording this on April 22nd here. So yes,
so it's been going for 48 years.
48 years of shaming the planet. Absolutely.
Wow. I don't know why, but I feel like that was like a holiday created in the 90s. I was way off.
No, it's like libs have been planting trees and shit like that. Whatever. I mean, I think a lot of this stuff started out fine. Yeah, it's great to take care of your local area, take care of the plant life, wildlife, and everything like that in the area. That's what we kind of started. I thought that's what we all thought to begin with. But no, here's a day to be like, oh, you're doing this wrong, or you should feel bad about your effect on the planet. I mean, inherently, Earth Day, the way that it's presented to us, is presented in such a way as like, well, you are causing a problem, but here are the things you can do to fix these problems or whatever.
Yeah, basically pointing the argument at the only people that aren't really causing the problem. Can we mitigate the issue on our own? Yeah, just like what Chris is saying. It's like pick up trash in your own neighborhood, that kind of stuff. But when we're sitting here punching down to the people that have nothing to do with the problem, that kind of ticks me off a little.
Yeah, these gigantic companies, and then China and India. I mean, like other countries are certainly going to continue doing whatever the hell they're doing, regardless of what we do here in the States. Yes, we might be able to set like a precedent, maybe a trend across the world, but I don't know. Still, I mean, we could make a lot of changes here, and then other countries just don't have to change at all, and shit will stay pretty much the exact same. Our carbon footprint as a country is nowhere near as bad as China's and stuff like that. I mean, like, you look at the pictures of, like, Hong Kong and stuff. It's just a smoggy cloud of shit, gray all the time.
Like Los Angeles?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, we certainly have our part of the issue here, but, like, that, like, smog and things like that, if you can, like, actually visibly see it, yeah, I'd agree with you. We have a problem, but... Like, here in Arizona, we've got these annoying emissions checks you have to do with your cars. I just had to go through one. It's a brand new car. I mean, it's the same as every other Chevy on the road. Why the fuck does mine have to go in and get retested? I got to stick my thing into their computer or whatever. Choice of phrasing might not have been the greatest on that. But, you know, like, so they can just tell me, like, oh, yeah, no, your car is still good. It's like, yeah, it's like it's not even a decade-old car, for fuck's sake.
Not only that, but it's like it's like making the pissing section of the swimming pool where it's like, there's so many counties like right around this county that doesn't even have to do that. So you drive up to the county I live in. Oh. It's just like you see that diesel pickup truck just rolling coal for 6 miles. It's like, nice, way to go. So emission checked.
After you paid the auto mechanic about $700 in my case, and then another $30-$40 just for those guys at the testing facility there to make sure they're whatever. Now I roll back out on the road and I see like a 60s fucking like horseshit car just just dumping fucking shit. It's like, how the... So I just jumped through all these hoops.
He gets a historic pass or whatever for his vehicle. Yeah, so it's a collector.
Well,
so
what the fuck? I collect mid 2000s Chevy.
Yeah.
You know, call me a collector too. What the hell? Anyways, that's Earth Day. Let's move on to the next thing here. What's smacking microphones?
Yeah, next big thing, Barbara Bush died.
Babs, she is gone. If you want my take on this, which I'm glad you asked.
Fill us in, Chris.
The woman is just like hated by the left for years and years and years. And then I just can't help but notice that there's this giant dick-sucking contest across all news platforms to tell you how great of a FLOTUS First Lady this woman was. Oh, wow. Well, look at the impact she had. You know, it's like literally the only thing I can see that she did was like letting. Oh, first of all, the common denominator here is Barbara Bush's vagina. This is my take on it. First of all, entering the vagina years ago was the worst president we've ever had in the history of
my lips.
The United States. He also the dirtiest CIA director of all time, and then out of her vagina. So that was what went in initially, and then out of her vagina comes the worst president we've ever had, in modern history, the worst president we've ever had, and then the candidate, the worst candidate for the replacing of said awful president. I can't say this woman's vagina, as far as political discourse in this country, has been the largest wrecking ball to progress in a good fashion here.
I think we should,
at least 3 decades.
Yeah, we're going to be doing an episode about abortion pretty soon, and I think what can abortion solve? You know, everybody talks about abortion, and they're like, you know what? You just aborted the next Jesus Christ. Okay.
Yeah, with the little Einstein there. Your little baby was going to be an Einstein.
Yeah, exactly. So
he wasn't going to be that guy that goes, "What do you want to do about it?" at the bar. Yeah. Like that guy that's sitting there like harassing young teenage girls as they get out of high school. Can't possibly be that guy. It was definitely going to be Einstein. Your baby for sure was definitely. I'm glad you played that Mozart while it was in the womb there, because when it goes and sexually harasses young women for the rest of its life.
Although we're not talking
very classically well trained.
We're not talking about the crowning achievement of Barbara Bush.
And
that is, she said, sometimes you have to live 92 years before you figure out the right sentence, and she figured it out.
Oh, hell yeah.
I guess this was last year during the elections. I think we were still in the primaries at the time, but she like dogged on her own son, Jeb Bush, and was like, we don't need another Bush in the White House. It's like, oh my God. Thank you so much. You finally did a good job. That's like the best thing a first lady could do.
Oh, look at these two shining examples of what the fuck I'm talking about right here. Jeb and George.
No energy. He's got no energy. Low energy Bush. That's what everybody calls him. We all call him that. Total joke.
I just
Total
thought like
fake.
the one opportunity Jeb Bush had during this last election to be the good guy was he was directly asked about like the missing, what is it, like 17 pages or something like that from the it's not the Warren Commission, it'd be the 9/11 Commission. The Warren was for the JFK.
Okay.
So the 9/11 Commission, if you believe the story as it's been told, which if you're a fan of this channel, you know all about what I happen to think about it. But let's just say, in short, I don't believe the story was what I don't believe what actually happened was what we were told on the news for like 3 straight years of just getting pounded in the ass 9/11 news every single day. I think let's see here. I'm like losing my train of thought on the.
Well, yeah. What did he do with the 15 pages?
Oh, exactly.
Or did he find them? Or
They asked him.
That's
They asked
interesting.
him. What when are you going to, or if you become president, would you write the law or the mandate or whatever that would allow these pages to come out and finally see the light of day? This was his one opportunity, in my opinion, that I saw the whole time, for him to be like, yeah, you know what, that is a good idea. I think the American people deserve to know. If the 9/11 Commission was 100% factual about everything that it said, why are we even holding back anything? We need to get rid of this guy here.
Oh, yeah.
Why would we be holding back anything? So, anyways, he goes, I don't know, maybe, or whatever. It's just like, dude, it was just like another wishy-washy thing when Trump was making firm statements, Hillary's making firm statements, Bernie's making firm statements at that particular time. It just was another thing that made him look like a wishy-washy douchebag. It's like,
Didn't he like come out and say that he like smoked pot in like a weird way or something? Or
I have no fucking clue.
it's like like somebody sat him down and gave him the speech of like, hey, you know what? Like they're gonna find out about it, so you might as well just come clean about it, and that way you look like you're the big guy for addressing.
I think
it.
it's
You know,
more
so it's
like-
I smoked pot. Smoked it a couple times. Smoked it with my brother while he was doing coke. You know, like,
Well, I
but
think it was probably like, hey, guess what? America is going to be pushing toward legalizing anyways. It's already happening in certain states and things like that. So you might as well get on the wagon as opposed to being looking like one of the old curmudgeons from the old guard that's like, oh, we don't want that marijuana or whatever.
Yeah.
Anyways, Jeb Bush maybe would have had a chance in the previous couple of elections, but this last one, no fucking chance. You had to have personality and you had to have just non-wavering points.
My brother's not going to be a president.
And Jeb was just kind of like, oh, well, come on, guys. I have something to say too.
yeah, totally like the perfect little brother. Has anybody noticed that? Like, it's just kind of like, come on, guys. Yeah, we're gonna go ride bikes out back, and then by the time Jeb gets there, it's like, yeah, we were already done anyway. Here's a bike. Have a go.
Finally, by the time Jeb swigs back, it's like he's already about ready to lose anyways.
Yeah.
Finally, Trump's just what was this? He had a thing. It was like,
Oh man, I know. It was like a year ago, but
mean stuff or whatever. And
he Jeb actually had like a legitimate like,
It's like a little rhyme
point to
though,
make.
something,
Yeah, but Trump just straight
it's like
smashed
name
him
calling
up.
politics or something like that. I don't know, whatever the fuck.
Yeah,
it was.
he tried to create his own.
Anyways,
his
so
own
that's
word.
Barbara Bush. Nobody liked her while she was alive, and now that she's dead, everybody's out there sucking her dick. And
Oh,
I gotta
yeah.
go, what's
That's-
the fucking Heath Ledger effect about Barbara Bush? I mean, like, Heath Ledger was in a movie about 2 gay guys fucking on horses, and then everybody's like, this guy's a huge fag, and we got problems with him, blah, blah, blah. And then, like, the next movie he does is Batman. Everybody likes Batman, apparently. I thought the movie fucking sucked, but
it was
yeah.
the movie
oh my
that
God,
made me
you
stop
have
going to
see it.
theaters.
It was the
Yeah.
greatest role of his life. What about the role where he was just banging the kid from fucking that
Yeah,
other movie
yeah.
or whatever? It's like, well, how. I just for me, you might call me an asshole or whatever, but the same thing I thought about somebody on Monday is going to be the same thing I think about him on Friday or 2 weeks from now, 2 years from now or whatever. Like, I'm not just going to Kurt Cobain somebody. Just like, if you like Kurt Cobain, if you like Heath Ledger, if you like all these people, don't fucking rip on them every day of their fucking lives, so then at the end you can go, oh, what a wonderful contribution they made.
great.
He was so
great.
artistic, and everything he contributed to the art world, I mean, especially the gay cowboy stuff, it was great. What a wonderful. I fucking hate that. Why do we sensationalize
man.
people after they're dead? If you like somebody, fucking tell them that while they're alive, because chances are they're working many days in a row without hearing any of that fucking shit come back.
Meanwhile, since nobody's put any sort of significance on it, all the good die young, and there was one exception, and that was the late great Art Bell, the best radio talk show
We were going to
host
talk about
of
him on the last episode.
all time.
The greatest.
And
Absolutely.
we're talking about Barbara Bush and people that have just totally raped and pillaged this country, and we haven't talked about one of the most influential people in
here's a
talk
guy
show history.
that entertain us. I mean, this is like
Yeah.
the Johnny Carson of radio, in my opinion. Like, the guy literally gave everybody a chance. And it was like the one show, we can sit here and talk about whether or not what he was talking about was legitimate or if
Yeah.
he was giving the voices to the illegitimate or whatever. But, like, it was the one show where an alternate opinion could be heard on terrestrial radio.
But that was the formula. It's like you had to throw all of it out, or you had to keep all of it in. And so
Right.
he went the all of it in direction. And you're going to get some pretty weird stuff. But at the end of it, you got some of the most incredible entertainment.
Hours and
ever.
hours and hours and
Thousands of hours.
I mean, for like right now with Space Erased in this show, I'm probably hitting about the 20-hour mark, and this is some of the most difficult fucking shit. I mean,
Yeah,
like
and that
these
guy did it every
podcasts
single week
It's the
for
most
years.
I've ever used all of my knowledge about all this, all the different media creation software and this, that, and the other thing, and then YouTube and all these other things. Fuck, Art was. He was doing it while he was still on AOL Instant Messenger and stuff. And every time there'd be like a thing of like a new webcam or the ability to webcam and all that kind of stuff, he'd be the first guy trying it out.
Yeah,
he was a pioneer, man. And the guy was so into it that he wanted to record from his home. So they built a huge antenna, X amount of kilowatts or whatever, and like the guy broadcast terrestrial radio out of his home. He built a studio. There's that one episode, too.
incredible.
I mean, if we're just going to sit here and have memories real quick, the one episode is where he was like, I got this new headphone. So now it's got a microphone hooked onto it. So when I walk around the house, I can still, do the program. I can go pour myself a cup of coffee and I'm still talking on the show or whatever. And the same episode, all of a sudden, it's just like all the audio cuts out, just boom, 1 second, it's just all gone. And then it comes back on like 15 minutes later after like the boilerplate, like, we're having trouble, standby kind of thing. And then
From east of the Rockies, call.
yeah, exactly. Well, shit, it turns out like Art was building a deck on the outside of his house, but a lot of times when your house isn't finished yet, you just have the sliding door and it just goes out to nothing. Right? Poor son of a bitch was just talking
like a
down a train of
6-foot
thought or whatever. He just takes a full step out into nothingness and just boom, he's
It's
gone.
like one of those Family Guy one frame just
And then the other one I really liked was it was just one I was coming across just on just regular, or, there's different channels that'll replay his old shows or whatever. There's one of his old shows. It wasn't even a special show, but he starts it off by going, "I'm really embarrassed now, guys," and then you're kind of like, "Well, I'm really embarrassed now, guys." And then as the story unfolds, you realize he was playing with some super glue. He was working on some shelf or something wasn't working right, and he put the cap in his mouth, or I guess he didn't put the cap in his mouth. He put the actual tip, and he fucking glues the worst thing a radio guy could possibly do.
all you need is your mouth for this
he
job.
glues his mouth shut. It's the only thing you need for this
Oh
job.
man.
Oh man, I don't know. I just nothing but fond memories of that man. He tried to come up with another show recently with varying degrees of success. People were kind of upset because he did sell a lot of subscriptions, and then the show itself didn't.
I forget the name of the guest too, but
find out now he had health problems and stuff.
Yeah, well, he's been struggling with back problems and all sorts of stuff for well over a decade. But they're saying the was it COPD or something like that?
It was something to do with lungs.
Yeah, I
and
think it was
smoking.
something
He was
to
a
do
cigarette
with-
smoker for a number of years.
Yep. But my total favorite memory is such like a nuanced deal, and it was in I think the guy's name was Charles Seif. I could be wrong on this, but if there's any Art Bell fans out there, you should totally check it out. But there's an episode, and I'm almost positive it's that guy. I might be messing up his name, but I'm pretty sure it's Seif. And there's a caller that calls in, and he's like, "Hey, Art, can I do a bong rip on the air?" And it's like, and like Art, he always has to play like the traditional, guy that's, all whatever. But he's like, all right, fine, just go ahead and do it. And you just hear the guy and the bong.
I feel like when he did that, Art mentioned like, well, I've only done this one other time on my pro. It's like he knew the amount of times bong hits had been taken on.
If you want to hear how insane I am, I totally went and I contacted the guest, right? That Charles, I think again it is like Charles Seif or something. But anyway, I actually
talk about the one caller that called up and did a bong hit. You're like,
yeah, I totally
really
called him up.
about your show.
Oh, and the guy is completely boring too. It's one of the worst episodes ever.
Probably so excited.
Yeah.
Oh, somebody remembers me.
Yeah, and so I
you
emailed
should-
the guy. This was like close to probably 10 years ago, but I says to him, I emails the guy.
Says
right?
to the guy. Says to him.
Yeah, but I email him and say, hey, you know what? A huge fan. Your episode changed. Whatever you got to say. Like your episode changed my life. All right. And the whole reason is I just wanted to get that. I wanted to cut out that one segment where the guy takes the bong hit and stuff like that. And the guy totally emails me back, and he's like, yeah, really appreciate the positive feedback. Unfortunately, I don't have a copy of that episode. And I'm just thinking like, oh, okay, so you're so special, right? Like you're such. Oh, you've probably done a million of these interviews that go out to tens of millions of people. You know,
even
like
back in the '90s, Art would like. I think his wife was like selling videotapes or cassette tapes that they made as like an additional income stream or whatever. It's like, would you like a recording of the program? That was always like his wife that was sending out those copies of shit. Or something.
Well, I got to imagine it was probably a lot more than his wife, but
I just remember at one point he mentioned that that's what they were doing, but I'm sure it grew past that point. But yeah,
Dude,
like so even in the '90s, you could send them like $10 and get a copy of the thing.
Yeah.
If you were on the fucking show, Art Bell, I mean, come on,
You'd
I would
want
buy
the episode.
I'd buy him out of his stock of the damn tapes. I'd be like, okay, how much you want for all of them?
Since we're on the lore too, I just got to jump in there. We should totally launch it just for nostalgia's sake. Maybe even put it on the Fraudcast channel. That'd be kind of interesting. But we made this program years ago called UFO To Go.
Yes.
And the premise was really simple. It was basically like, if you look at all these videos from guys like David Icke and Phil Schneider and all these different people, Jonathan Reed, the videos are like 4 hours or longer, you know? And you kind of realize that the way some of these charlatans are able to pass, or how they're able to convince people, rather, is that it's through attrition. It's informational attrition. They just like throw as much stuff as the royal bloodline, and they're so bad, and then you know they call them blue bloods for a reason, right? They're reptiles, you know, and it's like, whoa, you know, how did we get there in a 4-hour conversation? Well, it's like, you know, it's like, hey, I had you this far along and you totally believe me. I got you this far along, you totally believe me, all that kind of stuff. And then I'm going to drop this info. So UFO To Go was basically put out there to condense these like 4-hour videos down to like 15 minutes. So that way you could be like, all right, yeah, this guy's totally full of shit or whatever, you know? And if you liked it, then you go on to watch the video. So anyway, one of the first episodes we did was about a guy named Dr. Jonathan Reed. And we
one
should
of the greatest guests of the entire program.
We should totally put that. This
and
is
still like one of the most highly debated stories of whether or not this guy was telling the truth. To this day, even with personal phone calls back and forth to this guy, I honestly can't tell you.
Still can't tell you if it's BS or not.
There's been times in my life where I'm like, I'm absolutely certain this man is telling the truth, and if he is, it's the most sensational story of all time. And then there's other times where we saw that video, the follow-up, some of the content he made in Mexico years later or whatever, where it's like, God damn it, man. It's just like, fuck, that's verifiably fake. As a video guy, I can tell you that's fake. So,
but one of the most incredible stories ever of our like podcasting history. Yeah. Like we decide like, if we're going to start this show, we have to do it with a huge story. And so we picked the best story we possibly could. When we were 8 years old, we were sitting under one of those little forts that we made out of the couch cushions and sheets and whatever.
Here's young little Piss and Chris. Rewind the clocks back here.
Yeah, and 8 years old, sitting in front of the radio, we hear Art Bell announced the next guest, and
what did he call the story though? It had a great cutesy little name.
Called it the Alien in the Freezer,
or the Alien in the Burrito.
Yeah, there's like 4 names: Alien in a Blanket, Alien in a Burrito, Alien in a Freezer. So
we probably shouldn't tell the whole story because we do need to get on to gender identity.
No, I know,
However,
but this is such a cool story though. So like,
if you need to give them a quick,
so we in order to get all the information, the way a lot of shows work is you contact that person's organization. You say, hey, we're going to be making an episode here. We'd love to get your input, possibly an interview. And so I sent him all the contact information, never expecting to hear back from this guy at all because, it's just kind of the way it is. And plus by the time we got onto the story, it was like well over 15 years past its expiration date.
Like we listened to it when it was coming out, and then like when we became old enough to be able to create a show. I mean, we're talking
I think it was
15 years later.
Yeah, we were, it was something like that. I think we heard it when we were 8 and we were like, somewhere between like 19 and 21 or something like that when we made the show. So anyway, so we get a phone call. I get a phone call, rather, middle of the night, like midnight-ish, something like that, like way past the point of, this is an acceptable time to call. And it's from a blocked or unknown number. And so it's like, hey, risky answer of the night. Who's ready to do it? This guy,
man. I was sitting right next to him, and I just remember it was that point where it's like, it's strange how late we're getting this phone call, and then it says from number unknown or blocked number. That's so leap of faith time.
pick up the phone, and there's a very familiar voice on the other side, and it happens to be Dr. Jonathan
A voice
Reed.
we've been listening to for 15 years, over and over and over again.
And since we're already into it, I'll just go into the full. So like I'm talking on the phone. Chris Chris in the background is grabbing a microphone, and he's putting the microphone up next to the phone that I'm on, to record the conversation. And what transpires over the next like hour is like one of the most fascinating, heart pumping, like moments of my entire life. And in there, he says, he's like, didn't you ever wonder how Art Bell's wife died?
Oh, man.
And it's just like, stuff like that just like blows my mind. And that's one of the things that I always wanted to tell Art on the air and just be like, this guy is saying shit behind your back and stuff like that.
Not even tell him, but just pose the question, just see how he responds. Because if he responds in kind of like, or like, oh, come on now, like that was my wife you're talking about. I knew exactly what it was. I don't know.
But yeah, fascinating. I don't know.
The whole rise of his fame came from this one program, the Art Bell Coast to Coast AM or whatever.
Yeah.
So,
and Art turned out thousands and thousands of shows. I mean, the reason that we know terms like missing time and animal mutilation and all these different things is because Art gave people like Linda Moulton Howe, Bud Hopkins, those people a voice in order to speak their mind. And now think about it, it's like paranormal is so it's like, come on, now you're talking about ghosts and stuff. Like nobody has any like aggro type opinion about it anymore. They've kind of like they've through saturation.
Oh man, I mean, just the alien topic would be like,
exactly.
you'd be more likely to walk up and pull your pants down in public than tell somebody that, actually, I think there might be a good chance that there could be extraterrestrials. Yeah, I mean, really, it was
That's kind of a part of me.
Impetus for space erase and all that stuff. However, what I will say, my standing and my final point on this, because we do have to move on,
absolutely,
is I think the alien agenda is actually created by man, and I think it's far more likely that man might be using the alien agenda for his purposes. And I'm saying man like the proverbial the man, like those and the powers that be, X amount, like 15 richest families or whatever. You can pretty well trace who's in charge by following the money. I just feel like there's a lot of times, and there's a couple, that woman that came out that was like a sex kitten, like ritual abuse. She was used by the power elites or whatever. She's like, if they come out and they say there's going to be a big alien thing and whatever, we're all supposed to get together as a one world thing. Run as far as fuck from the other direction. And when she said that, it confirmed so many of my beliefs at that time, looking at the information, all the ins and outs and stuff. It's like, no, these guys absolutely will use like Project Bluebeam. You guys can look into that. I've talked about that on Space Erase, to, probably artificially project a UFO in the sky and use it as the impetus for a one world government, which, guess what? Number one fear for this guy is the one world government. And it's just like all these liberal leftist agendas where it's like, don't you want the world to come together? Don't you want to end war and all this stuff? It's like, I don't want kids to get mowed down at school and all these different things, but none of those things have the equal none of those things directly relate to like, so it's like the kid shooting up the school, that has nothing to do with whether or not guns should be illegal. That has everything to do with that kid's mistake, or, in this case with, or like the one world government thing is like, oh, don't you want to end wars and stuff? It's like, of course we want everybody to be
together?
One, I mean, that would be wonderful, but you have to know that the people that are in charge, that have the power to make these types of things happen, they are not working in your best interest. And historically, they never have worked in our best interest.
Nope.
How great is shit going for us right now? I mean, like, not that fucking great.
What a perfect way to launch into the topic, because there, for some reason, like if you look right after World War II, since we love talking about Nazis so much as an American public, if you look right after World War II, there was a fierce amount of people not putting a ton of faith into the government, right? So it's like, the government's not your best friend anymore. And somehow in our generation, or maybe not even, like probably a little bit before our generation, they decided to flip the scale once again, and they're making the government look like the good guys that are trying to help us out. And hey, we want to pass these laws, we want to do this, but those Republicans or those Democrats or whatever, they're holding us back. God,
that's why they're fighting fake news and all that shit, because they want to again be that authority say on like, well, we know information comes from all over the place, but the most reliable is from the government here, and especially your government sponsored news agencies and shit like that.
Yeah, and that's what makes it so sad, is because if the only people that believe it hook, line, and sinker that the government is out here to help you, they've probably never been outside of the country. I mean, really anybody who's gone around the world has realized, like, wow, there's a lot of beautiful places out there that are completely destroyed because of the government, completely unlivable.
Hey, you go on vacation, you go, why wouldn't I live here every day? And
Yeah.
you go, like, I don't know, man, get an apartment here for a week, or, rent for a little longer stay, and just see how, like, all the goofy shit you have to adhere to, and, like, these socialist countries that everybody is sitting there talking about, like, oh, Denmark and all these places are so great, we should be like them. Our country of 300 million people should adhere to this thing that's working for, like, this little tiny
the size
group
of Rhode
people.
Island or whatever.
And even, for example, even the president or whatever you'd call, like, the premier or whoever is the fucking leader of Denmark, he even said, please stop applying our socialist scheme of, how we handle business and things like that here to America. It's like it would not work. They can't scale it up. It's not, I mean, like,
yeah.
I don't
Well, it's the, Denmark.
So when the presidents of that country is like, yeah, no, we're not like any of the shit. Michael Moore goes over and goes, yeah, look at this guy. He's just showing you cherry picking, like, oh, this
Yeah.
country has free fucking.
But it's like
everything, and that one has
everybody
free.
walks or bikes and stuff like that. But that's because, like, the whole area was set up for that in the
Yeah,
first
to buy
place.
a car
and
is
it's very
so
small,
fucking expensive, and the taxes over there are ridiculous.
Small landmass, the everything's set up a lot differently. So yeah, there's systems that will work over there that don't work over here. But really the biggest problem is controlling free speech.
Yeah.
That's the difference between a tyrannical government and a non-tyrannical government.
And that's what pretty much brings us to the subject of today.
Yeah,
here.
so we're talking about pronouns today.
Literally a piece of speech.
Yeah.
What you would refer to a person as without using their name, I guess would be the definition of a pronoun.
Before we even get into the topic, like, I understand the angst of the LGBTQ, insert letters here,
It goes
organization. I get that you're saying, like, hey, come on. If you just say this thing, it's going to make this person happy and feel validated and feel accepted.
Which, just like what
Don't
we were
you
just
want
saying.
that person to feel accepted? And the answer is
course we
yeah,
do.
absolutely. But the vehicle in which you get us to say those pronouns is that's the issue we're having.
When it comes
here.
at the cost of forcing by law, which makes this again feel like a thuggish kind of a forceful change, when we're supposed to be talking about helping people, but really when the law comes, when it turns into law and we start, like, debating what the ramifications should be for using bad speech or whatever, poor phrases, things like that, that's when it feels like it's like a thuggish presence pushing, and it's like, well, really, are we just doing this to help people, or is there something more sinister? And it always, it's like, look at the effect. The effect of this is going to be limited speech, and not only limited speech, but we're like redefining words. I mean, it's like we've all agreed Webster's dictionary, Merriam-Webster, or whatever, or Oxford English. I mean, it's like these things have been there for years and years and years. And now, like, at this point here, just because it offends and we're talking about, again, we referenced it in the last episode, but 0.03% of the population identifies as transgender. So for 0.03, which would be like 30 or 300,000 people, I think, or something like that, out of 300 million, we're going to make it illegal if you don't use these words incorrectly. I mean, technically, by the defined English dictionary, you have to use these words incorrectly going forward, or you're breaking the law. You're using hate speech, which is like...
Or you're saying, like, yeah, you have to use the pronoun correctly. If you use it incorrectly, then you're...
Well, no,
you're
like, for example,
breaking
Jordan
the law.
Peterson, who we're going to get into, makes a great point. He goes, well, a lot of times these non-binary gender people want to be referred to as they or them, but in the singular. And they're like, oh, that's gone all the way back to Shakespeare. Well, it's incorrect. Like, you would say, to a little kid... what was the example he used? Like, if a little kid wants to bring his books to school, sure, they can bring their book to school or whatever. Like, that would be using they on a singular object or singular person or whatever.
Did
but
you
like,
just refer to them as objects?
I mean, the reason
That's
this
why
is
it's such a
perfect
slippery
fodder,
slope. Yeah.
perfect fodder for everything's fucked is because this is fucked. I mean, this is like literally fucked. We're literally trying to use they or them to refer to a single person in the actionary use of the word. Like, I would say they didn't want, if piss here was a non-binary, and I would say, well,
I consider myself not.
Well, they don't want to be referred to as a he or a she or a him or her. They would like to be referred to as them. And it's like, does this not confuse? You'd be like, well, who's the
not
other,
only
who's the
that-
other fucking people around you? Because
Yeah.
when you say they, Now you're talking about multiple people. So now we're literally redefining and we're forcing people to use incorrect English, which
Well,
is what the left has been doing all along with this
Not
politically
only that,
correct
but
shit.
the
It's
left
like,
just fought that battle 30, 40 years ago when it's how many times have you heard of that phrase that people commonly use to point out racists where it's like, did you just refer to them as those people? Because I feel like the them, they, those, that kind of thing, I feel like that's a slippery deal because it's like, oh, yeah, those over there are not, it's like, so I don't feel like there's really like a good exit strategy for that. And I feel like that kind of alienates people even more. And I'm going to make a really big claim right now that I think that a lot of this goes back to if you look at the why, for example. So why are we talking about this? And I think the easiest way to look at it is if you kind of look at the historics, we made the left, putting it this way, the left loves victories when it comes to civil rights, getting civil rights for African American, for women, for those kind of groups. See, there it is, for those kind of groups of people. So yeah, this whole thing is just pretty messed up. But anyway, so we have this wonderful euphoric high after electing the first black president,
right?
And we legalized gay marriage. So we can't just stop this momentum. Come on, the left is winning. We're moving. We have progress right now, And so I think the left kind of, looked at their bag of stuff and they just said like, okay, well, gay marriage is legalized. And that was kind of like the biggest thing that we had going on. Maybe we should pull something else out. Like, how about the trans community, right? The trans, they're still getting messed up, right? And so if you look at this culture that's been around for as long as humanity's been around, we're now going to prop them up and put them right in the center focus of the sites for modern mass media and stuff like that. I think that's the issue, is that we're trying to create vilified people. So therefore, we can create the response to that, and then fix that issue that we just made up, And I think that's the big thing. So like the left is just kind of riding on this high right now of like, hey, we've moved so many things forward. Why can't we just move this thing
to
forward?
boil this thought down though,
Yeah.
like it's basically like they've fought and fought for so much social justice, so much social justice, and so much civil advancement and things like that, civil rights. That can we possibly posit that maybe y'all have run out of things to fight for, and now we're just talking about goofy shit, and then really all that's doing is just further I'm a writer and I'm a gay guy. I'm a bunch of things here that get affected at once when we start like limiting speech and whatever. And these are supposed to be the people that are doing this on my behalf, which is, for a side tangent altogether, that why I fucking hate the LGBTQ, whatever the fuck. Just like if I was a gun owner, I probably wouldn't be super stoked about the NRA or whatever. It's like, why? Okay, hold on. So, yeah, okay, I get it. That, yes, I identify as this. And there's that group that supposedly identifies for the group of people that I've fallen. But like the problem I have is, what the fuck do I as a gay person have anything to do with lesbians, trannies, fucking I don't know what.
I thought you guys all had meetings.
Yeah, no kidding. Like first, I mean, and a lot of gay guys I know don't even like lesbians, and a lot of them don't like women. So I don't know, like why It's like alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. The ATF. It's like, what the fuck is the similarity between those three things? And they're basically by just lumping them together, you're saying that they belong together. So that's one problem. And then the LGBTQ thing in general is like, I just don't like that there's this agency out there that supposedly represents me, or organization rather, like supposedly represents me and my views, and they're fighting for me or whatever. It's like half of that shit I don't identify with, and I don't even want changed. Man,
well,
like if I was maybe African American and there's like Jesse Jackson or somebody up there talking on behalf of all of us, that seems like just as racist as the idea that we're different in the first place. I just don't like being subdivided in groups. I think that's bullshit, and I think that's why racism, things like that proliferate, is because from birth, it's like, oh, well, you're in this group, but he's in that group over there. It's like, fuck that. We should all be buddies. Like, nothing should... we're being nurtured to still be racist. And I think a lot of these things on the left side of like, hey, we're trying to do these things to stop racism, whatever. It's like, I feel like they kind of proliferate it by keeping keeping that part of the dialogue of the country or whatever. It's like, what if we just stop talking about it?
Well, and look at guys like Reverend Jesse Jackson and stuff like that. It's like, if we finally as a people just said like, yeah, racism is over. Good fight, guys. Way to go. then that guy would lose his job, you know? So it's like, can't lose your job. Nope, this guy just, the Starbucks thing, that's racist, get him, you know? Like, so we have to do these, like, witch hunts every now and then just to keep that whole thing alive, you know?
Here's some specific research now that I've been doing, recently back out on the dating scene here. So I've been on Grindr and Facebook and a million things or whatever. One of the things I've noticed that's really fucked up, and I don't think you'll hear a lot of gay people talking about, because they just, who is like me on that side that also will talk out about all this shit, because supposedly all this stuff is for me, to help me. It's like, oh, okay, I don't really need the help, thanks. So on Facebook or on Grindr or any of these new, social networking platforms, when you sign in to create your account, this is the thing that I was greeted with when I created my Grindr account. I was like, what in the fuck is happening to planet Earth? So this is it. Now you get a list, instead of the drop-down gender thing of being what it used to be, which was male, female, or other, which biologically, what the fuck else can you be? Now we've got a list of, 50 custom gender identity options that Facebook now provides, and I'll read through them, or I'll read through them real quick, because as our audience, it's our duty to our audience to make sure that you guys are not operating from a place of ignorance. So here we go. You got agender, you've got androgyne or androgynous, androgyny or whatever, bigender, cisgender, cis female.
Doesn't that seem like kind of close? Like, what one? Scroll up one more time. It's
Yes.
like the androgens or whatever, androgyny and androgynous or whatever. It's like, what's the, I guess, I don't know. Like, to me, I feel like we're separating categories just because it's like, oh wait, Jim said androgynous.
Oh,
okay, cool, put that on the list.
Because
too,
now we've created this protected class, and everybody's just terrified. I mean, really big things can happen to you on a corporate level if you hurt one of these people or mistreat them or get
so
seen
make
as
sure you got
mistreated.
your bases covered.
So literally, this is Facebook and every other company out there.
What else
being
do we
like,
got
well,
on the list here?
they're a business, so they're not going to shoo away the shit. If those people want to join their site and they want to identify this way, they're going to make it available for them. So you can't hate on the business for doing it. Bigender, cisgender, cis male, cis female, cis man, cis woman. All these things, cis, if you're unfamiliar, cis just means you were born a man and you think you're a man, and you're pretty cool with the fact that you're a man. Woman, it's like you were born a woman, you understand that you're a woman, and you identify as a woman. And the fact that we've created like cis and now we're naming that a thing, again, further sets it at the point of that you're wrong from the beginning, that you're thinking that you're just a man or a woman. Well, really what you are is you're a cis man or a cis woman. Now it's like you, as the guy who's doing nothing, has a brand new term.
I know, I was going to say, I was like, wait a second, I didn't even do anything, and now I got a brand new label? Like, that's kind of messed up.
Which means everybody in the country has something to learn, and when we want to create social change that we force on other people, we have to tell you, basically, and then, which is the reason I just wouldn't be a liberal in the first place, because it's like every day somebody's walking up to you, it's like, hey, did you realize that you're wrong about this? This thing that you've thought your entire life, you're actually wrong, and let me tell you why you're wrong, because I'm going to stand here from a position above you and talk down to you as I'm woman or man.
Not only that, but
why you're wrong about meat or whatever the fuck you're doing.
If you go on YouTube, you'll see like a million videos too, where
attacking fucking
but on YouTube you'll see like a million like social justice warriors, and they're in a conversation with somebody who doesn't correlate with those views. And then the person that doesn't correlate will be like, did you just assume my gender? And then just watch the social justice warrior, because they're just like, does not compute. What was that? What was that?
Crowder's.
No. There's like a term for like when you give a robot like an improbable logic question and it like fries them out or whatever. Like I feel like it's like that.
Error.
Something like that. Yeah, but. I totally feel like that's kind of how it works. So it's like, not only does the left make so many of these things, but they're making so many that even the leftists who are trying to believe in it can't keep up with it and make the mistake themselves.
Right. I just saw some animated show recently. It's like it's made for kids, but it had a great point or whatever. I can't remember the show. I don't know. It's something you'd recognize from like Cartoon Network, but you've never seen before or whatever. It was like a little, little girl, a little boy sitting at the lunch table, and the little girl goes, you know what? I only eat my sandwiches with whole grain, organic,
gluten-free,
crushed grain, gluten-free bread or whatever. And I think that's really the way to go or whatever. And the kid next to her disarms the whole liberal whatever by being like, actually, not all of us have the ability to purchase high-end breads from high-end specialty retail stores. So actually, if you wouldn't mind checking your privilege there, I'd be really, it's like in a short circuit, the lib like, I was trying to be super lib and force you down like this thing, the veganism or whatever. It's like, like the old joke is like, there's no such thing as a mute vegan. It's just impossible. They have to tell you about why they're vegan.
I feel like as far as the questions regarding this topic, we've really gone into like the when, really talking about the history of it. We've talked about like the why is it going on? Yeah. But one of the big questions that people aren't asking is the where. Where is this going on? And you're seeing a ton of this information coming up from the college community. So different college campuses around the country and not even just our country, but Canada and a few other places as well.
It'd be the perfect place to reinvent a new consent of the public or whatever.
Yeah, that's where a lot of this narrative is getting pushed from. And when you talk about the mechanics of this, the people that are in college, because I'm sure, I don't know, some of our audience might not have gone to college yet. Some of them might have been out of college for a while or going through college right now. But when you go to college, chances are you haven't quite figured out who you are yet. And that's a scary thing, And so when you go to college, it's a really nice place to go because you can meet a ton of different people with a ton of different opinions, and you find that you really side with some opinions and you don't side with other opinions. And that's what helps shape you into who you are. And so one of the big problems I have with gender identity is I think the word identity is more important than the word gender.
Oh, man, I think did you just say something profound right there?
And I feel like the issue that we're running into is that people are, nobody we're identical twins, right? So our whole lives, it's like, hey, I got a 50-50 chance you're the wrong one because I'm an asshole. We've gone through that our whole lives. And so when
we've always been treated like a thing that's different, And it's just from the point that
and actually, which is really funny, is like, you want to talk about they, them pronouns. It's like, the boys or them, they're going to go do this,
they just assume that we're attached to the hip and we do all the same stuff, all the same stuff.
So if you want to talk about identity issues, you're talking to the right pair here because we've gone through this our entire lives. And the thing that helped us get out of that is developing separate identities based on things that we like, opinions that we have. We correlate on a lot of different things here. We definitely agree a lot more than we disagree, but we disagree on a lot of points. And the reason we were able to do that is because we're a part of different reference groups. All right, so we had a little technical snafu there in the studio.
Where were we here?
Yeah, camera cut out, but we're just going to jump back into it here. So it's not as much about the gender identity as much as it is about just the identity portion of it. So when you're in college, just to recap here, just in case something got cut out, when you're in college, you generally don't know quite who you are yet, which is not a bad thing. That's why you're going to college.
That's why you're figure that out. All out.
Because when you leave mom and dad's house, that's where you're going to kind of find out, like, hey, not everything mom and dad said was true, so therefore I have to make up my own mind, and that's the beginning steps into becoming who you are. So when we're looking at these kids today, and they're saying that, hey, I need to be called Zim or Zer or those kind of things, I really feel like largely that's young America crying out saying, hey, we want to be different, and hey, we want to be an individual, and hey, we want to be accepted for who we are. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you look through the past decades, we had the punks, we had the goths, we had the emos, we had all these different groups of people, right?
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. That's America. You can be whatever you want. However, it's like where we take issue or where I take issue. The line is when now I can't just be punk. I'm forcing you to identify me as punk, or if you're not calling me punk, this is a hate crime kind of a deal, hate speech type of situation.
Yeah.
That's fucked up. I mean, I think this whole list of goofy shit that we're scrolling through here, there's nothing wrong with this. The problem is when it becomes an actionable offense to not identify somebody by their just made up, right now we're in this world where you can identify as whatever the fuck you want to be. That's a little weird. Any individual person can be whatever they want to be. And it's even to pixie. You can be, you can be animal. You could think you were born in a man body, but you're supposed to be an animal body. That's another thing on here.
Yeah.
And this is only 56 of the custom gender options when there's, I think, 70 or something like that. And they're growing every day because it's a made-up thing that's not rooted in reality in the first place.
my
I guess maybe I'm pulling you off your point there.
no, my angst with it,
I did want to move because we still have the Jordan Peterson.
yeah,
video
absolutely.
we wanna cover.
Yeah, I mean, just looking through this list, you'll see like trans and then trans with an asterisk and things like that, and it's like, all right, guys, like we gotta boil down the list here. It's like
And of trans, it couldn't be more confusing. It's this is literally the trans thing, and I'm scrolling.
Oh my
okay,
God.
so you've got trans asterisk, trans female, trans asterisk female, trans male, trans asterisk male, trans male. Wait, isn't that the same? Yeah, they've got two trans males. Or no, trans man. Excuse me, trans man, trans asterisk man, trans person,
Oh my God.
trans woman. Trans
What's the difference
woman,
between a
trans feminine, transgender, transgender female, transgender male, transgender man, transgender person, transgender woman, trans masculine, transsexual, transsexual female, male, transsexual man, transsexual woman, transsexual, and then two-spirit is the last one. I'm a two-spirit person.
So
I was born with two different spirits.
Now that you, the audience, are just as confused as the people who came up with the list, like this is where
you know what I do want to find on this list is,
Yeah.
do they have male and do they have female just by themselves, singular, male and female? I guarantee you it'll be cis male, cis female. Or
Yeah, I
here,
think-
I'm going to look alphabetically.
I'm
here
almost
for
positive
male.
that it's cis male, cis female.
You've got male to female, and you've got MTF, whatever the fuck that is. It must be male to female.
Sounds like we're talking about like cables now. Like, oh yeah, my HDMI is a MTF.
It's a
Yeah,
male connection there, or
Yeah.
male-female connection. Nope, they do not. So now, if you identify as just a male or a female, which I guarantee you every single member of this audience is either male or female, and it's not even... Here's another thing. This is one of the big points I wanted to cover today on my side here, is that the left is constantly accusing the right of being willfully living in the Stone Age here. I'm going to move my mic a little bit, but willfully living in the Stone Age of lack of scientific information, because they say, look, if you're not acknowledging climate change, you're literally like just throwing out this huge scad of information, and then they constantly say that 97% of scientists agree that climate change is a real thing. So all these Republicans that are in Washington are saying, whenever they're sitting up saying that, oh, well, what are we, positive that we're talking about a real thing here, that, climate change is actually happening, they just laugh and laugh. Oh, wow, you guys are living in the past. You're not even, like I said. So that's the left calling out the right for not using science. Or not even acknowledging science, all the science we have on the climate change. So now the thing I'm thinking is hilarious here that nobody else is pointing out is the left is calling out,
doing the exact same thing.
they're making the exact same mistake by saying, oh no, these people, you need to refer to them the way that they specifically want to be.
Yeah, it's using subjective information.
It's all subjective, and then it's different case by case. So literally every person you run into, you're going to have maybe and it sets people up for an awkward interaction, like a bad interaction.
Well, and when
because
you
now
look,
you're setting. Well, anyways, to finalize the point, though, the left is making the exact same mistake by saying, oh, well, no, all these people did, 72, 75, the number keeps growing, identities, they identify that, so you should be kind and identify them as that. However, they're throwing out centuries of biology, essentially. That's science. That's actually a better, more reliable science to report on than climate change, which is still not verified. And it's still not verified. And the evidence for that is that every time one of these Bill Nyes or whatever talk about it, they're like, yeah, 97% of scientists are convinced. Well, fuck, if it's a real event, if it's rain falling from the sky or the sun going around the earth or whatever, 100% of scientists would agree on it. This isn't when we talk about agreeing or disagreeing, we're not talking about science anymore. Science is a thing that happens, and it's repeatable, it's documentable, and it happens every time.
Did you say it was like
consistently.
70% of the scientists believe
It's
in
97% is what you hear. Bill Nye and all those guys.
well, that's
Neil deGrasse Tyson.
That's a little scary then that you have 3% of scientists.
Wouldn't that be one last thing? But wouldn't that be great to challenge Bill Nye to make a statement on, are there two sexes or are there more? Because then you'd have a liberal scientist really, well, he is a scientist. He'd have to say biologically these people are either male or female, but he'd be turning off that same crowd that is all up in
Well, hold on.
He's got a new TV show coming out.
The left is making the right acquiesce to 0.03% of the population.
Right.
Why can't the right flip the argument and be like, hey, well, 3% of scientists don't believe?
Actually, and one last point here.
Yeah.
I mean, I totally am in full agreement with
Yeah,
you
it's like,
there.
well, come on. If 3% of scientists don't, we need to really be careful about what we say to those 3%. You know, like why isn't the left doing that at all?
Yeah, why aren't we carefully considering the feelings of that three? Yeah, exactly.
So
That's
why does it
point.
only work for one side? Yeah.
It's all illogical, which is why the show is named Everything's Fucked. It's like you literally, the more you start thinking about it, you're like, none of this shit makes sense, and it's almost like it was designed to not make sense. And since we're on the topic of language and why it's important or whatever, the left, anytime you disagree with them, like for example, they posit climate change, and they don't have 100% of the evidence for that, regardless of whatever you hear. It's not like a for sure this is happening, this relates to that, and this is whatever. And what they do then, without having all the facts in, they say, oh, so you don't believe in climate change? It's like, well, the burden of proof is not on me. The burden of proof is on the guy saying
don't
that
believe
climate
in
change
Bigfoot?
is a real thing. So then what they do is they brand you with a moniker. This is what the left is famous for. Oh, you don't believe in climate change. But belief is in the word there. I shouldn't have to believe in evolution or climate change or anything. Yeah. It should be a fucking documentable thing. And science is the absence of belief. It's what refutes belief in the first place. I don't need to believe because I can verify this thing is happening every single time they says it. Okay, whatever. So yeah, they brand you with a moniker. So you don't believe in climate change. You're a climate change denier then. Oh, really?
Yep.
Oh, so
you're a flat earther.
climate change denier?
You're a tea partier. You're a prepper.
They
you're
would say, yeah. So, you don't like trans people. You're not comfortable with them and all the weird shit they're doing that's obviously different from everybody else. So you're a transphobe. You're a transphobic person.
You're a transphober.
I can't stand transphobes. And really, if you think about it, like the programming was on us and our generation and younger. When you think about it, like, oh, you don't like that guy over there because he dresses and talks funny, homophobe. It's like we've got a fucking name for you. If you don't feel the same way on all these social fucking things that we're doing, we've got a name for you, and that'll force you. Oh, so you like guns? And you want to protect the Second Nazi? It's like, oh my God, there's a name. There's a fucking epithet.
My
there's
favorite
a moniker for every person.
My favorite is for 9/11 because they call them truthers. Like, oh, you're looking for the truth. Okay, so you're a truther.
I hate people that like the truth.
I love that. I'm like, yeah, no, I would say I'm a truther. I would much rather hear the true answer.
Oh no shit! And the fact that like they're hating on you for trying to find out aren't you like just stomping on the graves of all those people that died? It's like, no, I'm concerned about why they actually died. I want to tell those families what really happened to their loved ones and why the fuck that day was so messed up. But whatever, that's a side topic for a different episode entirely. Here we run almost completely out of time. Here we will go a little longer since we had that little camera issue.
Okay.
But one thing is, I do need to pull up the. Oh, and it's gone already. Okay, I'll find it again. But we're gonna watch a little bit of this video that we found on Jordan Peterson has just finished a lecture. Which again, if you're a white guy speaking conservatively, you're not doing lectures. You're doing rallies. Which makes us all think of late 1930s Germany. Winding back the clocks to fascism growing in the world, not in America. Unbelievable. So anyways, at his rally okay, so first of all, he's just finishing up. He's talking with some people, and this SJW, this social justice warrior, comes up to tell him why he's so insensitive about...
how about this? Do you mind if I make my final
certainly, I'm going to pull up this video here. Yep.
Okay. I think if you do, it was Jordan Peterson, SJW, something like that.
Yeah.
But
can't find the fucking history.
So my whole point on this issue is that I don't think anybody's insensitive. I mean, you're always going to have those few outliners, but I think everybody's trying to be as amicable as possible. It's with gay marriage and stuff like that. It's like, all right, I think we all agree. It's like gay marriage doesn't hurt anybody, and it just helps other people, with their life's endeavors, So it has nothing to do with heterosexual marriage at all. Didn't challenge that at all, aside from now it's not just between a man and a woman. But when we look at these topics, I think that I think we have to be realistic about the outcome with it. And so when we're talking about identity, I think we have to say, like, all right, let's just make it that. I think that's what your issue is you're just having an issue with being able to find who you are. So instead of trying to change the parameters, the male-female gender roles, instead of trying to change that, just be who you want to be and just live inside that system. Because the thing that I never hear people bringing up is like, I want to read that police report someday where it's like, this non-racially described binary person robbed a store today. It's like, well, how do we catch that person? Well, he was really just a person, really. So, they were just a person.
What did that
really,
person look like? Well, they just looked like a person.
They just looked like a person.
I don't see race. I don't see height. I don't see
so that's
age,
so in order to
gender.
keep continuity, just stick with the male female, be who you want to be. Nobody's going to challenge that, and just live your life. And as long as you're a good example of whoever you want to be, then you're going to make a good name for whatever it is that you want to perpetuate.
Okay, so moving on, we do have to haul ass here. So this just to credit the maker of the video, or at least where we found it. This is coming off of Katrina Fleming's channel. Video is called Professor Jordan Peterson Swarmed by Narcissistic SJW Ideologues who after U of T rally. What is it? University of
Toronto.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So this is in Canada. So you watch what's coming up next for us. I mean, really watching these foreign countries is the best way to figure out what's coming up for us here. So here's a little volume. I'm just going to double check that this is playing right.
The presence of Nazis and white supremacists assaulting people at your protest.
Okay.
I want to go talk to Peterson. Peterson, do you have any comments on the Nazi presence at your protest?
We'll try to make brief comments.
Okay.
The presence of Nazis and white supremacists assaulting people at your protest. Do you have any comment on that?
So immediately, the SJW starts from the standpoint of, okay, so you have Nazis attacking transgender people at your rally or at your whatever your talk here. Do you have anything to say about that? Like he is the guy that called the Nazis to go attack the trannies at his thing.
If there really were Nazis there in the first place.
If there were in the first place. These are all, monikers or whatever you want to call it, put on these people by the SJWs. Again, anybody who disagrees, we've got a name for you.
Sorry, just to interject a quick point, but the left is fighting so hard to get us to make sure that we follow their pronouns, and then they turn around and call the right Nazis.
Yeah, absolutely. When they do it, it's fine. When we do it, it's not. Look at an SJW. When they smack somebody on the street or punch somebody who they disagree with, like, when do the cops ever round that guy up or that woman up?
Well, he was punching a Nazi.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
He was doing a good job.
And if all the people on the street are clapping for the person who committed the crime, all we're doing is just validating that behavior, and we're rewarding it by not punishing that behavior, which absolutely is a actionable offense. Here we go. Let's move it back in.
Yeah, I don't like Nazis.
Then why were they here?
Yeah, I don't like Nazis.
Well, how can
What do
Are
you have to say
there
about that?
are their views in
I don't like
alignment with
Nazis.
yours?
At some point, you have to realize
Yeah.
this question. Look,
Their views are aligned with
my
yours.
views are.
So right there, the whole question so far is trying to form the question in such a way where you're basically identifying Jordan Peterson here with Nazis. So, I mean, but they align with your viewpoint. So basically what you're doing is creating a culture that's safe for Nazis to organize and come see your shit, is what you're saying.
I've watched all of your videos, yes.
Including...
Yes, I have.
Wow,
Then
you
why would
watched
you
all
ask such a
150 hours. I'll fast forward through a little bit.
I have 100 Could you let me talk to her for a moment?
Don't call me that, please.
Oh, that's...
Please
Oh,
do not.
don't call her
Will you,
her.
will
yeah.
you let me talk to her? Oh, excuse me. Do not call me her. Oh my God. Well, you're at ground zero
that's
for
the
this shit,
issue
'cause
with
that was what it was. It was something about transgender rights.
That's the issue with the pronouns in general is that you can't. You're gonna mess it up, and so to make it a law and you're gonna mess it up is like entrapment almost.
Absolutely. And
so,
it basically means we can charge anybody who's not on the progressive.
But hold
side
on,
of
who's
things.
the one who's saying who's giving us the answer? And if you talk to or if you listen to a lot of these videos with these people, they're saying like, oh, well, just ask the person their preferred pronoun. So this is me meeting Chris for the first time. Hey, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. I don't want to tell you how I'm doing, but I am doing something.
Okay, I just want to know what pronoun do you prefer to be addressed as?
Oh, I think that's a extremely weird question to ask me as the second thing we're saying to each other as two brand new human beings. Well, I don't know. I identify as pansexual, bi, whatever. What do you identify as?
Which pronouns are you comfortable with me saying they?
No, actually, I'm not.
What would make you comfortable?
I would be comfortable being called. Actually, I identify as Invader Zim. So if you could call me Invader Zim when you're speaking about me without using my full name, I would really appreciate that.
Or
if you'd be sensitive about my Invader Zim.
You just brought up a great
identity.
point. the left will also say like, well, instead of calling me a pronoun, how about you just call me by my name?
It's like, okay, so I'm walking up to you on the fucking street. Do you have a name tag on?
You know, like, yeah. So I think we need clear
And when's
backpacks
that going to turn into
and
like
name tags.
When's that going to turn into when you say, "Oh, hi, Julie," and it's like, "Oh, why are you calling me Julie? That was the name I was born with." But that insinuates that that's like a female name. I think that's really rude to call me. It's like, I mean, obviously, this is a slippery slope.
Look
these
at
are
how
not
long-
like scientific terms. These people, so these are all made up. Basically, let's just fucking come to grips on that. This is all made up little subcategories. And where's the line? Where does it fucking end? I don't know.
I mean, like, really, if you're going to
really
try and
could
boil
keep
it down,
slipping.
you'd have to say, like, you know, hi, how are you? You know, what's your name? Okay, and what pronoun would you like to be called? You know, like, that's that. Now you're changing the entire way the English
you're
language
a guy
works,
that
you know?
hires people into the workforce, and
Yeah.
pretty soon, I guarantee you. I mean, this is just my, I'm not actually the guy hiring people, but I would say it almost makes sense that pretty soon here you will have to be like, oh, hi, George. Is it all right if I call you George? I know that's your name, but I know you probably. We want to make sure you feel comfortable if you do identify as something other than.
Yeah, it hasn't quite gotten that far, but there already has been about 2 weird ones where, like, you'll say something and then you get this, like, this face. That's the left's favorite face.
Yeah,
this is I just wanted to let you know visually that you've said something.
you've said something wrong, and maybe I can't even defend the point, but I know that, like, just social justice-y wise, I'm supposed to have a problem with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, if
It's
you want,
basically like, look at these people. Look at let's take a look at just a random sampling of the people. None of these people look like guys or girls or people that are like that are really owning it today in society. These are bitter people, and they want to make the rest of the world bitter. And I think that's primarily what liberals are, is they pick these causes that sound great. And who doesn't want to fix the earth? Who doesn't want to keep kids safe? Whatever. But everything they do makes the rest of us bitter and makes our lives complicated and fucks it up for everybody else.
Yeah,
And
what I
it's
see
like
in
a
this
negative.
group is a whole bunch of kids figuring out their identity.
Right.
They're
Let's
figuring
keep
out who they
rolling
want to
this
be.
here, too, 'cause I don't want to.
Yeah.
I have 150 lectures on YouTube. There's 500 hours of my video.
Right. So he's calling her out for,
that
like,
there's
obviously
some
you didn't
awful
watch.
people lurking in the corners.
Oh, this is
and
a pretty
they're ready-
important one
He
if
gives
you
kind
want
of
to
like
back
a
it up.
warning here, but the way he's saying it.
And I understand it very well. And I can tell you that there's
Talking
some
about the
awful
Nazis.
people lurking in the corners, and they're ready to come out. And if the radical left keeps pushing the way
That
it's
sounds very
pushing,
much like a
they're
threat.
going to come.
That sounds very much
That's
like a
not
threat.
a threat.
That sounds very much
Not
like a
even-
threat.
He's saying, yeah, basically what you guys are doing is you're creating this. There's obviously the group of regular people.
Yeah.
That's never changed. The people that are, the most of the country is like, what is this? Like, I mean, you and I are figuring this shit out just within recent, history here. So you're catching the whole country off guard. And
Well, the other thing, too, is identity is a very strong word, so you have to be very careful about that. We're talking about gender identity, and I briefly mentioned personal development identity, but what Jordan Peterson's talking about is basically like a political identity. And so when you make identity politics, basically what his argument he stands on is like the left's going to make all these arguments, and they might even win, but when you activate the farthest right, the fascist right, those people are not playing for legislation. They're playing to win.
calling the extremist right fascist.
Yeah.
It's like, again, that's a thing that doesn't make fucking sense.
But not only that,
Explain to me how a group of people that wants limited government, states' rights, more personal responsibility, how is that fucking fascist? Fascist is creating a society controlled by a dictator that, creates a climate where you can't say certain things or you'll be in trouble, da-da-da-da. Shit, this is starting to sound like liberalism, like modern day leftist shit. They're creating this culture where you got to double check what you're going to say. Otherwise, anybody on the street can report you. And now that we have smartphones and social media, fucking any social justice warrior on the street at any time could create the next viral video of you doing the thing that we're all now just deciding we shouldn't be doing or whatever. But what the other comment I was going to make is, like, the majority of the country hasn't changed. The majority of the country thinks the way we thought 10 years ago or whatever.
Yeah.
So what they're doing is, like, they're making all these changes, and they're making that group of folks more and more uncomfortable. And yeah, you're going to start seeing some fucking extremism because you're coming. It's like it's like Civil War. It wasn't about slaves. It was about the North coming down in the South and saying, yeah, we kind of did away with all that shit. Yeah, we know you guys need it, but you can't do it either because we're not doing it or whatever. It's like, fuck you. This is our entire way of life. So basically, whether or not you agree with the South or the North or whatever, it was basically the North coming down and saying, yeah, we need you to change your way of life just because we're not fans of
I'll make it even
It has
more.
nothing to do with you. You're up there. We're down here.
Yeah,
We're doing what we need
I'll make
to
it
do.
more-
And the North was probably thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
But it really,
I'm going to make a more
force
poignant
a group of people to
new-
change, they're going to get radical.
Yeah, exactly. So like if you compare it to like a something that's happening today, look at ISIS for example. So it's like I'm full agreement that the U.S. built ISIS, whether passively or directly. Basically, that saying that obviously a lot of the weapons and stuff they're using are from the U.S. military, but those people were recruited because it's like, hey, these guys have been bombing us since before I was alive. So my whole life we've just been getting destroyed by this other country and stuff like that. And so that's how you create radical ISIS members, you know? Same thing is true in this country. If you start calling people Nazis and stuff long enough, you're going to start getting them because people are going to get fed up and they're going to join into it.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
the
not everybody is like having real level heads here. You call a big tough guy Nazi enough times, he's going to go, you know what, fuck it. You want to see a Nazi? Let's do this. You know, like that's that mentality of those kind of people where it's like they're literally creating this inclement climate and it's just getting tighter and tighter. And it's like, really, it's like, I get it. We're trying to be so sensitive to all these different people's values and whatever, but there's the majority of the country has one set of values, and everything that's being done here progressively is to attack and change those values. Everything that they see as a norm now has to change. You're not doing it right. You're saying this wrong. You're throwing this in the wrong receptacle, whatever. I mean, it's just control, and the more they heat that up, the more we're going to see it. And they want, I swear to God, you're just looking at this stuff, and if you're really paying attention from the macro, they're trying to incite the right now. If you identify as a Republican or conservative, the last fucking thing you should do right now is fight back or get upset or whatever. I mean, fight back, but use your words, use logic and intellect. Try to change people's minds. That's what we're trying to do. You'll notice, maybe we have radical views on the show, but neither of us are ever going to hit somebody that disagrees with us. We're not going to punch or fight anybody, because fighting fucking has no bearing on change. And fuck, you want to piss people off with a new change, punch them in the face while you're forcing them to change it. You know, like you're going to create a class of dangerously pissed off people in this country. And guess what? I mean, they have every right to be angry because they have just as much say on how they can talk and they can act and whatever as you do. Which is why, I mean, I took the extremely unpopular stance of standing with the quote-unquote Nazis at Charlottesville, and yes, I've seen the video. It's tough to defend those guys. However, I have my views on Nazism and all that shit aside. Of course I don't like Nazis. They are a group of people just as entitled to their opinion, which is fucked. But they are just as entitled by our Constitution and Bill of Rights as you are to your opinion.
Doesn't mean you have to like their opinion. Yeah.
And the Nazis, or whatever you want to call them, I fucking hate calling them the Nazis because that's the left. They branded that group of, I feel like it was more like conservatives or whatever. And yeah, there is some clips of them saying the Jews will not replace us, but I'm pretty sure there's some clips of them saying like, yeah, Second Amendment rights. Let's stand up for those.
Very selective coverage. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Anyways, that group of people, they applied for a permit. They could be there, and fuck, even though you disagree with it, I disagree with these SJWs, but they have just as much right to smear all this goofy shit on you, which is, you know, as you do. But the difference is the Nazis, or whoever you want to call them, whatever, they're not legislating new rules that we all have to live by to make them comfortable, which is fucking ridiculous.
Not only that, but the left, if you look at like if you put the metrics for what it is to be a Nazi next to the left, it's identical. The right's not being Nazis here. It's the left. You know,
so
when
now
you
we're
see
talking about
Antifa,
Joseph Goebbels, basically.
Yeah.
From,
So when you
from
see
World War II in Germany.
what was your line from him?
Goebbels said, and the oldest trick in the propaganda playbook, and this was used every day in Nazi Germany and in the United States during World War II. And watch what Hillary Clinton does. It's the same technique she uses. It's accuse your enemy of that which you are guilty. So if you're say you're a political candidate and you had sex with a younger kid or you raped them or something like that, the best defense would not be to address that. The best defense would say, did you know that my opponent raped a little kid or something like that? All of a sudden, all the rape thoughts, all that stuff goes on your opponent, and everybody's trying to consider how that happened with the opponent. Nobody's thinking about you doing it now. Like Hillary Clinton's talking about women being raped and all this stuff. Well, one of the biggest abusers of women and their rights and their privacy and everything is fucking Hillary Clinton. Maybe her hand wasn't directly on the wheel or whatever, but I mean, they damn near chased one of these women off the road and killed her, just harassing the shit out of every woman that Bill was fucking. And she was the cleanup crew. Accuse your enemy of that which you are guilty. The left is 100%. That is like their playbook motto, whether or not they realize that that's what they're doing. Yeah, you know what? We're going to probably end up turning this into a two-parter. Do you want to swing into another episode here because we got all this Jordan Peterson? Or we could cut it here. It's up to you, bud.
Yeah, we'll see. Even if the next episode doesn't directly tie to it, we might come back to it because this is, I mean, just like what we were talking about before. I mean, this isn't just gender identity politics. This is identity politics. This is a whole bunch of other kind of stuff.
I think our next one should be identity politics. Then I don't know.
Yeah. So we can definitely do that, but there's going to be a common
so
vein.
Much meat on this bone here.
There's going to be such a common
way
vein
we can
through
cover
all
this
of these videos that are going to talk about the constitutional rights because it's always going to be measured up against that. So this will probably not be the last time we visit this topic, but you've heard my opinion. Like I said, it's not as much a gender identity as it just is a identity type of thing.
I've still got like an hour left to go on what I got to say about all this.
Well, we're very sympathetic to those that are trying to figure out their way in life and what they're doing. What group they belong to, all that kind of stuff, which I think groups in general are wrong. But, we wish you the best of luck. We just would highly recommend not changing the conditions around you to fit you, but to change you to fit the conditions, kind of a thing.
Like I'm an artist and a musician. I'm all about identity. I mean, every single artist has to have their own unique identity, and that's fine. That's great. That's what makes us wonderful, beautiful people. That's what makes humanity so great. However, to then make that leap and say that, these kind of goofy personas or whatever that we're creating for ourselves to make ourselves marketable and interesting to the fan or viewer or whatever, like when we make the distinction or when we make the change over to like now you have to identify me as the guy that wears this bucket on his head, a bucket on his head while he plays guitar. So I'm actually bucket ease or whatever, like I'm, I'm bucket minded or whatever. Or I'm, whatever. Like, now we're talking fucking crazy land here. I mean, this is like, if you start applying it to anything else, which now, that's not even outside the realm of fucking reality. I mean, identifying as a pixie or an animal or whatever, I know I was born a man, but I really identify with a squirrel. So I feel like what I should have been was a squirrel. So I'd like you to refer to me in squirrel pronouns, please. I mean, like, literally, that's not a fucking problem anymore. That's not weird anymore.
Oh, I love that.
That's
like,
part of
why
the
don't we
norm.
just identify as 60-year-olds so we can start collecting Social Security? That'd be great.
I think Jordan Peterson made the same point. He goes, so how old are you? I mean, he's like, you're young enough where I could probably, ask your age and not offend you or whatever. Or no, that was, might have been Crowder, yeah. I don't want to call, whatever. We're trying to be as accurate as we can, but Crowder looks out over the crowd. He sees this young girl he's arguing with or debating with, and he goes, well, you're probably young enough where I can ask. She's like, oh, I'm 22. He goes, great. So why don't you identify as an 80-year-old? And she's just like, wait, I don't understand. It's just like, well, you can't, because you're just not. You're not 80 years old. You're just, and it's not like you can feel 80 or you want to be 80 or you most likely feel like you should have been born 80 or no, it's just like you physically can't be 22 and 80 at the same time. You physically cannot be a woman and then identify as a man or whatever at the same time. You either are or you're not. And that's so many of my debates of like the illegal immigration for that episode, my whole point on that is just going to be like, is it illegal? Okay, let's not talk about all the other sub things and what people feel about and da-da-da-da-da. We're starting, but that whole liberal argument starts after the point where you agree that these people are committing a crime. They're breaking the law. So what the fuck else is there to talk about?
Do you want laws that are black and white or shades of gray? It's like you want your law to be black and white. Did I break the law or didn't I? You don't want a lawyer to be able to tap dance around and be like, oh yeah, actually I'm going to manipulate this. No, you want it black and white. So when we're talking about this kind of stuff, it's do you want this or do you want that?
We're creating when you talk about creating a culture based around the legal system of grays, like gray laws and stuff. I mean, literally, that's going to make like I don't know. I think what he did was probably fucking against the law. I mean, literally anybody now can be accused, and pretty much guess who the anybody is going to be? It's going to be anybody, any dissonant of the United States government or the power structure in this company or in this country rather. Company, not a bad word to slip on. It's pretty much the exact same fucking thing. It's the company that insists on being treated like a company, even though it loses money steadily every year and costs more money to operate every year. It's the worst company in the world. Anyways, shoot. God, I feel like we need to do another episode on gender identity, man.
We'll do it. But just remember,
hopefully out of time here.
Just remember, it could be you, could be me, or it could be you. So don't mess up. Make sure you keep your pronouns in order. Until next time, this is Everything's Fucked.
Oh, thank you.